Hi, this is Tim at the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. Reach out to Team Mosso at the1916company.com for pricing of this or any watch on today's show. And we are opening up with a late 2023 launch for the Villanova preliminary round of the America's Cup competition. This is the Omega Seamaster Planet Ocean Deep Black Emirates Team New Zealand chronograph. It is a watch dedicated to Omega's partner. Omega is the timing partner of Emirates Team New Zealand, the syndicate that will be the defender for the 37th America's Cup in Barcelona in 2024. Now, Emirates Team New Zealand, out of New Zealand, the sponsor, the primary sponsor of the syndicate, is the Royal New Zealand Yacht Club. Emirates is on board. So is Omega, and you can see the America's Cup right there. You can see it again as the counterweight to the seconds hand, and then you can see the turquoise fern, which is the symbol of the team, and you will find its color echoed throughout this watch. You can see it's a 45.5 millimeter scratch-resistant black ceramic Planet Ocean diving chronograph, and it features a matte black ceramic dial with more turquoise accents. Modified here, as you can see, caliber 9900 now features a regatta style countdown, as the countdown, particularly the first 5 to 10 minutes, critical before the beginning of a match or one race within a regatta, which is what America's Cup is. You can also see there's a digital scale right underneath, so you can easily parse this modified display. Now, taking a quick look at the watch, you can see on the back it is solid with the Naiad-style caseback that always aligns top to bottom. 600 meters water resistant, helium escape valve for saturation divers. It's a large watch. If you want something with big pilot wrist presence, but you're more aquatically oriented than aviation, this might be your match between diving, sailing, and the fact that it is a 600-meter diver first and foremost, with lovely turquoise accents. This might be more your speed. It's a big watch, but I can wear it, so I'd recommend you put it on a wrist my size or larger. Definitely a 17 centimeter circumference or up wrist is going to wear it well. My wrist, once more, is 16 centimeters. Let's do a loom shot so you get a good sense of how this regatta-themed diver looks in the dark. Now you can see every hand here is really luminescent, including sub-registers. We have differential lume green for the minute hand and the bezel pearl, so you can tell them apart at a glance. Always useful in a pinch when you are diving in low light conditions. We have a clasp that has a ceramic external buckle, so when it's on your wrist, for example, and you're moving your wrist back and forth on your desk, the part that's contacting the desk isn't the titanium interior, it's the ceramic exterior. So this watch will be indelible throughout. The timepiece does feature caliber 9900, automatic twin barrels, 60-hour power reserve, coaxial chronometer, that's master chronometer, with vertical clutch and column wheel action. And it is virtually amagnetic to over 15,000 Gauss or 1.5 Tesla. You can wear this thing anywhere you would want to sail and engage in regatta or diving. Another aquatically themed watch. This one came out in 2020, 44.6 millimeters in diameter. It is the IWC Portugieser Yacht Club Moon and Tides, featuring a northern and southern hemisphere moon phase display, as well as a low and high tide indicator. It is for yachtsmen who want to know when they have maximum draught under their vessel to enter and exit the harbor. Now, it is a Portugieser, but you can see with a screw-down crown, a little crown guard structure, and a 60-meter water resistance rating, plus a rubber strap, this one is safe for surface swimming. The Portuguese launched in 1939, the original purpose-built oversized watch, at the time built to be as accurate as a pocket watch. The only way to do that was to purpose-build a dress watch case around a pocket watch caliber, and it was not an officer's watch like you'd see during the period where a pocket watch would be converted to a wristwatch. The Portuguese was always a wristwatch designed from scratch. Integrated lugs, a combination of Arabic numerals and leaf hands, as well as a relatively thin profile, have always been hallmarks of the Portuguese, a sort of form follows function. And here in rose gold, it has a manufactured caliber A2835 movement, Peloton, ceramic-based, pawl-based winding system, a historic IWC heritage element, 60 hours of power reserve. Properly filling this case back. Again, water resistant, sufficient for swimming, and surprisingly well loomed. All right, now we have another watch, which is more of a dry weather sports watch. Everyone knows the Royal Oak, first designed famously by Gerald Genta in 1972. It was essentially the progenitor of the entire integrated bracelet sports watch genre. It was not the first, but arguably the most influential. Here, 41 millimeters, we have a 2021 model year limited edition of 300 in grade 5 titanium. This is the Royal Oak Perpetual calendar. So we have a perpetual calendar, a photorealistic moon phase with an aventurine sky behind it. We have a radial week of the year indicator. We have the Grande Tapisserie. It is the large hobnail cut on a pantograph mimicry lathe. And we do have some luminescence here. The hands and the indices, white gold. They will never tarnish or oxidize. The bracelet takes 9 to 11 hours to finish, depending on the material, with a titanium version of the bracelet taking approximately the upper end of that range, 11 hours. You can see even the faces of the intermediate links have been polished. You ordinarily cannot see them until you flex the bracelet. The expanding bevels over the lug hoods expand into a polished bevel that runs seamlessly aligned down the shoulders of the links. Throw the watch on my wrist, easy to wear, though broad. It is broad across the wrist. I always think of a Royal Oak wearing 2 sizes larger than its rated size. So if this is rated as a 41, think of it as a 43, and you have an approximate idea of how it would fit. Again, my wrist 16 centimeters, no issues fitting under a cuff, and really no issues fitting on my wrist size. I'd say down to 15 centimeters circumference, you can wear this watch. On the case back, we have the legendary 2120. Vacheron calls it the 1120. It's the JLC 920 Bausch, which is now built and finished in-house at Audemars Piguet. This movement in 1967, sponsored by the Holy Trinity, all three, for their exclusive use, never used by JLC on its own watches, nor on any of its non-Holy Trinity customers. This movement was one of the thinnest in the world at the time, only 2.4 millimeters thick, automatic winding with a annular beryllium ring running around the movement, a mass on one side, and 4 ruby roller jewels to prevent the rotor and the mass from contacting the bridges and plates. The finishing on this movement has always been a cut above other Audemars Piguet watches. One of the reasons why production of this movement has always been slow, and frankly, and regrettably, the reason why this base is no longer part of the Royal Oak Jumbo collection. Frankly, they just wanted to make more watches, and finishing and adjusting this movement is slow going. 40-hour power reserve and a nice vintagey 19,800 vibration per hour beat rate, reminding you that this movement is a product of the swingin' 60s. Okay, now we have something quite special because it's a piece unique. Well, depending on how you look at it, it's one of 6, or one of 18. When Max Büsser became the leader of Harry Winston Rare Watches, he decided to coin the Opus series, bringing in nomenclatura from the independent watchmaking scene to build individual editions. The independent would get publicity, and Harry Winston would get exclusivity to a design by a rock star independent watchmaker. And so the Opus series started with who else? Francois-Paul Journe. But the Opus one was not one watch. It was a trio of watches. It was the Octa Automatic, the Resonance, and the Tourbillon. 6 examples of each one of the 6 a piece unique. Here, with a vertically satin-finished gray dial, diamond setting, because, hey, Harry Winston, and a 38mm platinum case, we have a piece unique Harry Winston Opus 1 Resonance chronometer. Chronomètre à résonance, you can see animated by F.P. Journe, who invented and made it. Now, it uses a hinge-style lug at each side. It's about 50 millimeters across the wrist, a little bit less than 10 millimeters thick. You can see it has the arch design, first coined by Jean-Claude Guet, Emmanuel Guet's father, back in the late 80s when he created the very first Harry Winston high horology watch, which was the Accenter Perpetual calendar. Well, this continues that arch-like design, reminding you of the arches over the entrance to Harry Winston's flagship store in Manhattan. And it is the Resonance chronometer, 2 independent movements in one case with a combination of diamonds and black diamonds. So these 2 movements are not actually coupled together by any kind of mechanical means. They operate independently, each one with barrel, train, escapement, and balance, operating in the same case, but completely without any interaction save the resonance phenomenon itself. So what's happening here? Well, the parasitic emanations from friction, vibration, they emanate out and they begin to interfere constructively so that these two balances start to beat perfectly in opposition to each other. So equal and opposite motion, so if one is slowed by sudden action of the wrist or position, the other will, by an equal and opposite margin, speed up, and they will self-correct each other, and they should be coupled together so that they vary no more than 5 seconds relative to each other per day. Now this is not just a piece unique Harry Winston Opus 1 by F.P. Journe. This is a brass movement era Journe. As you can see, the bridges are rhodium-plated brass, manual wind, 42-hour power reserve, 3 Hz beat rate, free sprung, 6-position adjusted, and if you look here, you can see that the finishing on the Opus 1 is to a higher standard than a conventional Journe resonance chronometer of the period would have been, so there are detailed differences. The two dials can be set separately, so it can work as a dual time, though that's not really the idea. The more you wind it, and I kind of recommend you wind it from the case back, but the more you wind it, the closer the hand moves towards 0, because the power reserve indicator works like a marine chronometer, indicating 0 for 0 hours since fully wound. Now, because it can take 7 to 10 minutes for the two sides to couple each other by resonance, the second's hand may not be perfectly synchronized, so there is a flyback trigger down at the base around 4 o'clock, so you can synchronize those once it is up and running. Full clasp with Harry Winston motif, throw it on the wrist. Definitely not a watch for a shy man, but also not overpowering in its size. It's nicely sized, a sort of early 2000 sensibility before bigger was better and biggest was best. This is a watch whose size, proportions, and even the gem setting is held up really well. Definitely a watch for an occasion, but what an occasion when it does come out. All right, Vacheron Constantin, true or false? Vacheron became part of the Holy Trinity because of manufacture movements. False. Basically, for its first 250 years, Vacheron was an établisseur, designing the watches, choosing how the cases would look, how the dials would look, dictating the quality of the parts, and then assembling and regulating them in-house, but not a movement manufacturer. That's why I was surprised by the 2019 commentary on the then new Fiftysix collection's entry-level watch, the self-winding. It's true, this is a Richemont group caliber designed by Val Fleurier and best known as the Cartier 1904, but it's also finished to Vacheron standards, albeit not Poinçon de Genève, still a standard that would rival the best mainstream watches from Audemars Piguet. With a custom rotor of 22-karat rose gold, there's nothing in here that doesn't befit Vacheron's legacy as the premier établisseur or assembler of parts in the Swiss watch world. And at 40 millimeters in rose gold, with no shortage of luminescence, this is a very practical daily driver. Entry to Holy Trinity watchmaking and prestige, with quality that leaves nothing to be desired in terms of grace. Look at the teardrop undertuck of these lugs, the soft crease that runs all the way along the length, the little wedge profiles at the corners of the dial designed to evoke the 1956 reference 6073. Look at the countersunk crown so it doesn't stick out obtrusively, the expensively cambered and boxed sapphire crystal, solid rose gold, hands, indices, and logo, so they will never oxidize or tarnish with time. Take a look at some of the details here. Notice Vacheron uses a brown bronze date disc on a brown bronze dial. Not every company gets that right. Look closer. They use the same font on the date disc as they do on the dial. Styling, symmetry, and parallelism that I love. We have a sunburst finish for the hour track. We have a circumferential sort of graining for the seconds and minutes track outboard, a piano key track inboard, and then a matte or opaline non-directional grained center. And you'll note that the finishing on this twin-barrel 48-hour automatic movement is to a high grade, particularly on the rotor, which features snailing, media blast, polish, and beveling, ceramic bearings, solarized bearing center, stripes, solarized barrel covers, black polished screws, a machined but handsome and neat bevel, a 48-hour power reserve, automatic winding, hacking seconds, and a quick set date, and a watch with a lot of presence on the wrist. It's not oversized, but I would describe it as full-sized. A watch that's got a broad-shouldered kind of personality. It's not rude, but it definitely makes itself known. This is a Vacheron that has a little bit of nerve to it, not afraid to be slightly larger than the company's historic mainstream. At 40 millimeters, this can go toe-to-toe with any Calatrava, and heaven knows any Code 1159. All right. I'm not sure why it is that we never hear about them, but I really wish that Swatch Group would spend some money to promote Glashütte Original. They make their own movements, they make their own tools, they operate both their own tool-making and watch-making schools. And here, at 39 millimeters in pink gold, we have the Panomatic Reserve, which is one of the most beautifully ornate and underrated calibers in the world. On the back, 3/4 rotor, duplex, swan's neck fine adjustment mechanism in black polished steel. Not one, but mirrored bridges, freehand engraved. We have beveled bridges, we have blued screws, we have polished screws, we have Streifen or stripes. We have multiple solarizations on the reduction wheel for the winding system, 42 hours of automatic winding power reserve, 5-position adjustment, which is the high horology and chronometer standard. On the dial side, note that the date disc, 2 discs, flush, and we have a quick set for snappy adjustment of the mechanism. And yes, flush discs, a real feather in the cap of any double disc system. It is the panorama datum or the outsized date. Now you can wind it manually if you want. If you want to see the power reserve indicator traverse, you can see right here the watch does include hacking or stop seconds. The case has lugs that are set apart from the case band, though not dramatically as on a Longa. This is a little bit more elegant. Inside we have that caliber 9003, and you can see there's engine turning on its base plate, snailing underneath the rotor, finishing runneth over on the case back, full folding clasp with trigger release. Throw it on the wrist, it's beautifully sized. A consummate dress watch. It's not too big, it'll fit underneath the cuff, and it's an option for him and for her because of a sub 48 millimeter lug-to-lug measurement. A really graceful watch from one of the best kept secrets in watchmaking. I think the best kept secrets in watchmaking these days are mostly in Germany. Lang und Teine, Moritz, Grossmann, and Glashütte Original. Guys, spread the word. Now, this is a company that used to be a well-kept secret until it got a rock star CEO and began to embrace the wacky side of watches. Moser Cie of Schaffhausen, Switzerland. In 2016, they launched this, the Swiss Alp watch, a very limited production send-up of the famous smartwatch. It wears its influences on your sleeve. Now, the idea here is to laugh at yourself. This is a mechanical watch that invites you to, quote-unquote, disconnect. A timepiece that's obviously inspired by the Apple Watch, but in the best possible way, tongue-in-cheek. It's also beautifully made. It is possible that along with some of the craft art pieces, the Swiss Alp watch was the lowest production model at Moser for the years it was available, from approximately 2016 to 2021. This is a white gold 50-piece limited edition, and that's right about how many they made each year. You can see it's a monoblock case, as there's no seam between the bezel and the case flank. It's all one piece, and everything loads through the back. The watch is 10.3 millimeters thick, it's 38.2 millimeters across, not inclusive of the crown, and it's 51.1 millimeter from lug to lug with a wire-like lug profile. It actually wears exactly like a roughly 45 millimeter wire lug Panerai Rajumir, so it is flat enough to fit under a cuff. But I don't necessarily think it's a frumpy dress watch. This is a watch that's more sport casual. Don't get it wet, but you can wear it with anything. You don't need long sleeves, you don't need formal attire, and you definitely don't need an occasion. Taking a look at the dial, it uses Moser's well-known fumé or smoked fade. So we've got a light silver metallic sunburst at the center that dulls to a sort of champagne and then black at the edge. We also have a dramatically boxed and cambered crystal designed to look like the one on the Apple Watch. Flip it all over. We have a properly shaped and sized caliber HMC 324, and properly shaping and sizing a movement for its case is one of the marks of a true manufacturer, that you can build the movement to suit like a tailor. So manual wind, 4 days of power reserve. You can see it does feature a stop seconds function. which allows you to see that this is Moser's proprietary balance, hairspring, and 14-karat gold escapement. They make all those parts in-house. 18K beat rate, overcoil hairspring. Precision Engineering is their subsidiary that makes all of these fine parts. And 14-karat mechanical gold is used for the escapement because it reduces friction and reduces the need for lubricants, and the whole assembly from the escapement to the balance is designed to lift out as a unit, so when this watch goes back to service at your regional Moser service affiliate, this particularly time, labor, and attention-intensive piece can be lifted out and replaced by a pre-serviced unit. There is a power reserve indicator on the case back, so I guess technically this is a complication. Double-crested Côte de Genève, you can see the bevels. Satination across the bridge, which has particularly well-executed bevels. Black polished screw heads, solarization on the scale of the power reserve indicator. And then you can see that all this on a barrel with a solarized cap, and it's free-sprung with a full balance bridge for shock resistance. While not a true sports watch, it is a little bit heartier and tougher than the average bear in its class. We have a white gold pin buckle right here, and the watch is made of gray gold, which is a white gold that's white all the way through and never needs to be rhodium plated. All right, I talked about the best-kept secrets in watchmaking, all being in Germany. I think this is the best of the best. Moritz Grossmann, named after a famous figure in German watchmaking, was actually founded in the teeth of the economic crisis of 2008 by Christine Hutter, a former watchmaker turned entrepreneur who wanted to create a watch in the tradition of the namesake Moritz Grossmann. And so the watch that you have here is a 2021 launch known as the Tremblage, and the star is its dial. 41 millimeters in diameter with a rose gold case featuring welded lugs, so upscale and handmade. We have a dial with a roughed tremblage-like surfacing, almost as though the hand that wrought every detail was trembling as it carried its tool across the surface. And what's impressive here is that it's monoblock, so all of the tracks, the characters, the letters, all of the Breguet Arabic numerals are actually part of the dial, and they're relieved up from the base, while the rest features that roughed texture. It's made of German silver, an alloy of nickel, copper, and zinc that's also used for guitar frets, with the copper giving it that golden hue. And again, if you know about guitar frets, you know that they don't corrode. That's why this material is used historically on German watches, as well as pocket watch era Swiss watches. The hands, made in-house. Moritz Grossmann, famous for its homemade hands. They're cut, polished, and then fired to create a rare violet brown hue. You can see that they are needle-like, incredibly difficult to achieve this level of precision. Rolled on a miniature rolling pin in the case of the minute hand, the firing has to be shorter than a blued screw or a blued component because only a short application of flame can produce this type of color. Now, you may wonder, why isn't the watch beating? Because I wound it up. Because Moritz Grossmann has a system that is brilliant. I can set the watch by pulling out the crown. It snaps right back in flush. You know that when you push the crown back in after setting a watch, it always displaces the minute hand. So no matter how precisely you set, you will never be able to set it precisely unless you have this. Press the button, and the movement resumes its operation. Once again, the balance beats at 18,000 vibrations per hour. Now let's see it from the beginning. I pull out the crown snaps right back, now it's flush, and I can set the watch. And I could set it as precisely as I want, and when I press the resume button, there is no extraneous motion on that minute hand. So not just hacking seconds, but a unique patented precision setting system. On the back, we have caliber 100, manual wind, 42-hour power reserve, 18,000 vibrations per hour. We may take a look at Moritz Grossmann's in-house crafted free-sprung balance. You can see variable inertia bolts on the balance used for adjustment. Their proprietary micrometric screwed index used primarily for beat error correction. You could see the freehand engraved structures, the cock for the escape wheel, as well as the balance with a sort of floral or banknote scrolling motif. This watch designed to pay tribute to the 19th century era of German watchmaking, so we have no stripes that wouldn't be used at the time. We have a frosted finish, triple solarization on the ratchet wheel, and if you look carefully, you can see the teeth of both ratchet wheel and the crown wheel planet ring, not the core, but the planet ring with the teeth micro-beveled on the edges. Black polished crown wheel core. Note that all the screws have been violet brown annealed. We have clear sapphires, not synthetic rubies, and all of the characters on the bridge, whether it's the script, numerals, letters, all of this has been freehand engraved, and you can see the frosting achieved. You could see golden chaton cups holding the pivot jewels because that's how it would have been done in the 19th century in Germany. You could see that the crown does not actually turn anything until it's re-engaged, but they gave you a little kerf under the crown so you can dig your nail in more easily. Press the resume operating button and it does so. Now you can wind it. Look at the extensible multi-part black polished click. Look at the screws. We have both polished and fired screws, and all the screws featuring the most generous chamfering of their slots and circumference that I have encountered. You can also see that there is beveling on the few bridge edges available, media blast on the base plate, and the whole thing constructed like a marine chronometer, also with an enormous 3/4 plate a la pocket watches. 41 millimeters in diameter. It is an exquisite work of art inside and out, and it wears sizable. I'd recommend it for a wrist of 15 centimeters circumference or larger, and you can see it's got a lot of presence and a lot of warmth. Don't believe what they say about German watchmakers. They're not hugely technical, intellectual, esoteric, and detached. They are enormously warm, enthusiastic. They are just like us. They are diehards. They live and die this stuff. They live, sweat, eat, drink, breathe watchmaking. And yes, their hearts also melt when they see a watch like this, which is why Moritz Grossmann gave the world the Tremblage. Reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for purchase and pricing details.